In season on Sunday with Lucie Cutting
Incredibly crisp.
It's quite a feast.
Smells fantastic.
on 936 ABC Radio Hobart and ABC Northern Tasmania.
Good morning to you. One of my favourite moments in the program where we talk about seasonal dishes, foods that, maybe it's seasonal because you love to eat it at a particular time of year, or maybe the produce is at its peak best moment at this time of year, and it means that what you're using in the dish is as fresh as possible, and often it's at its best price as well because there's a lot of it about. This Sunday we are talking about golden syrup dumplings with sultanas, or you could use some seasonal fruit. And here to tell us about the recipe and celebrate their passion for food is Javier Duarte, who is of JD's Kitchen Capers, which is, and I think you can find it on YouTube, and it's this kind of online area where Javier celebrates his love of food by sharing recipes and often focusing on a single ingredient, which is what we love to do here. Good morning to you.
Good morning, and thanks for having me.
What a pleasure. Now, Javier, I'd love for people to learn a bit about you because this is the first time you've ever done the in-season segment on the Sunday program. I understand that you came to Australia from Peru at age 8.
That's correct.
What are your memories of food, being able to cook food and all of that kind of stuff from that young age?
Well, food is life in Peru. Peru has a culture that's thousands of years old, but from colonisation, we've got 500 years. That's about 300 years more than Australia's been colonised. So you can imagine that having, when the Spanish brought in the Chinese to work and the Africans, that they've been there for 200-300 years. So the fusion of Peruvian food is really exciting, and it's developed into their own cuisine. Now, apart from COVID, where Rome won, Peru's been voted the travel to destination for food in the world about 8 times in a row. I think 9th now. We've won this year again. And also we got voted the best restaurant in the world, one of the restaurants in Peru, which is a fusion of Japanese and Peruvian. So the food there's fantastic. Anyone who's been there will tell you. And a lot of the foods that we know come from Peru, South America, including potatoes, chili, quinoa, all sorts of produce. So I'm really proud to come from a country where food is celebrated, and I'm really passionate about it. But my passion grew here because when I was young, we had maids and a cook. And over there, it's not a family thing, cooking. Well, now it's changing, but in the old days, the kitchen was at the back and the maid used to cook, and we used to get our food presented to us, and it was a room that we weren't allowed to go in. Not like here where you see mum cook and everyone cooks together. It's part of the home. And so food had that mystery that we ate at home or at restaurants, but I never saw it being prepared. So when I came to Australia, it was like amazing, like, oh my goodness. As I said before to someone, it was like discovering that, meeting the cow that gave you the milk. And so I became really interested in cooking and seeing how all these ingredients came together to make wonderful food. And I started cooking for my family since I was, 9-10 years old. Wow. So then when I went to school, I did cooking as we do here in Australia in grade 7 and 8, took it up in grade 9 and 10. And, my passion just grew and grew.
Given that you grew up, up to age 8, you grew up in a house where the food was presented to you.
Yeah.
When you said, I love cooking, I'm going to cook for my family, were any members of your family kind of going, why do you want to do that? You can, we've grown up with the food just presented to us.
Well, in some ways, coming to Australia, it was a difference. It's not so much that we're super rich, but the economy is different in a third world country. So over here, where you could now get a maid or a cook for a week is probably what you'd pay someone here for an hour. So you can imagine. So coming here, there was no choice. Mum, who probably didn't really cook a lot, but, as a kid probably learnt a couple of things, suddenly had to start cooking. And because I just had that passion for it and that interest, I started to do it as well.
Yeah.
And, it got to the stage where I was cooking for the family 3-4 nights a week and doing treats and, making sausage rolls and golden syrup dumplings. And coming to Australia, in those days you weren't allowed to bring money with you. you weren't allowed to bring possessions. You had to bring the minimum. This was in 73. So we came here to start again. So you can imagine coming from a 3-story house with 2 full-time maids, 2 part-time maids. I suddenly had to make my own bed, dress myself, get my own milk. And so, yes, it became a necessity, and then it became a passion.
Yeah, complete life change. This is Javier Duarte of JD's Kitchen Capers, and we are talking about Javier's love of food, but also a recipe that you've brought in today for in season, and that is golden syrup dumplings with sultanas or seasonal fruit. If you text in the word dumplings or Sunday to 0438 922 936, you'll receive a link to this recipe. Javier, what do you love about golden syrup dumplings?
Well, first of all, you can go into my YouTube JD's Kitchen Capers, and initially there's a recipe. The recipe's there, and I cook it for you and show you under golden syrup dumplings. I've tweaked the recipe because when I look, golden syrup dumplings is one of those things that a lot of families grew up that didn't have a lot of money, and when we came to Australia we had to start from scratch. So making things like scones and dumplings was very economical, and so it was one of the things that I used to love to make. And when I decided to do the recipe for, initially it was JD's Camping Cuisine with Goavi Thetford, who hired me to fly to Melbourne and cook for them.
Oh, wow.
And now I've started my own YouTube channel. I had mixed reactions. A lot of people said, "Don't mess, with the traditional recipe," and there were people who didn't like sultanas. Those who love sultanas said, "Oh, it's adding a new texture, a new flavour, a new level." And later on, I started experimenting, saying, wait on, why don't we make that level, that texture fresh? And so I started using blueberries and apple and cinnamon and macadamia and raspberries, so white chocolate and raspberries, and turning these simple little dumplings into really tasty and delicious foods that you could change. And again, if fruit was in season, you could use that and just elevate that flavour.
Yes, I do know that sultanas can be a bit controversial in a dessert, that some people love fruit in something like this and some people hate it. But let's talk through the recipe itself. I know that it's a nice, simple and easy to make and quite a cheap one to make, golden syrup dumplings. But talk me through how you do it.
Well, the first thing is to make your dough, which is like a scone dough. And you add, I actually add, instead of a lot of sugar, I add the golden syrup to the dough, which is in the traditional recipe. But I like to get that connection of the sauce and the dough, so that the flavour goes right through. That's one thing that I've done that's different to tweak it. Once I've got my dough, obviously like scones, you don't overwork it. You just put them in little circles. And I just love that sauce, being lactose intolerant, I don't add milk or cream. And you still get that creamy flavour, but people can add a spot of cream or to make it creamier. So it's quite a versatile recipe because you can add the fruits that you like. You can add the spices you like. If you like cinnamon, throw some cinnamon in. If you want to put some white chocolate, throw that in. Once you've got your base of the recipe, adding things that you love makes it really special. Yeah.
So not overworking the dough is really important, as you said.
Correct, because then they grow more and they're fluffy and light because you're not toughening the gluten.
Okay. What about the cooking process? How do you make sure that they continue to be nice and soft and bubbly?
Oh, look, it's so easy. Once you start working on your syrup and adding all the ingredients, and once that's warm and you add your little, so you call them little pillows of love, you throw them in and you put your lid on with the steaming method and the sauce cooking, you're going to get fat little juicy. Oh, making me hungry, Lucie. I should have bought some food.
This is Javier Duarte of JD's Kitchen Capers, and we are talking about golden syrup dumplings with sultanas or seasonal fruit. If you text in the word dumplings or Sunday to 0438 922 936, you'll receive a link to Javier's recipe. And as Javier mentioned, he has tweaked it a little bit over the years to perfect it to how you like to taste it.
Correct.
So what do you serve it with?
Well, Being lactose intolerant, if I take my tablet, I love it with the scoop of vanilla ice cream. But now I can get coconut ice cream or soy ice cream, which is delicious. But obviously the sauce is already there, so you don't want a custard or anything like that. But a little bit of King Island cream or thickened cream, I think is really nice rather than just pouring the cream, because you've got that poured sauce. So again, it's all about balancing textures, and a nice thick dollop of King Island cream goes down a treat.
Sounds delicious. Javier, what other seasonal ingredients are you loving at the moment?
Well, I would say that at the moment, I'm sort of using Granny Smith apples a lot. I've got a tree, and around this time, they've just come off season. But mine mature around June, July, and then they keep for a little bit longer. But normally around the winter time, that's a great time to get your cauliflowers and your broccolis and your spinach. And I just love using seasonal produce, because if you get as you said before, if you get something that's in season, naturally it's going to be at its peak. It's going to be full flavour, it's got the sun, it's got everything it needed to be at its peak. If you get it off season, that changes how fruit and vegetables...
You can taste it a little bit.
You can, yeah. It's a lot fresher. And as you said, it's very important for families, especially nowadays, that are struggling or where the economy is not great. Things are cheaper because it's being grown in abundance. And so if you buy asparagus when it's in the season in Australia, it's going to be not only tastier and supporting local farmers, but it's going to be cheaper than if you buy the imported stuff that comes from Mexico and sometimes from Peru. Sometimes I make the exception being Peruvian, and if I see a Peruvian, go, well, it's in season in my country. So I'm glad I've got two countries. I can choose seasonal fruit from two countries.
Javier, thank you so much for joining us for In Season. And if you just search JD's Kitchen Capers, that's where you'll actually find Javier giving you a walkthrough of this recipe as well. But if you'd like to get the recipe, just text in the word Sunday, dumpling or dumplings to 0438 922 936. Thank you so much for your time.
It's been a pleasure.